Hilchis Tumas Tzara'as Perik Shvi. So we mentioned before that there's a din that nepach kule loven, that every part of his body that shaykhs to become tummy with Tumas Tzara'as was nepach lelovan, so then he becomes tor. But that din is only if he was originally tummy, either he was a tummy muchlat, or even there was just hesger, which there was no simoni tumah, but he had a din tumah, in other words, he had a baharis, which caused that he should have hesger, and mitoich the hesger, or mitoich the fact that it was a huchlat, they became hafach kuli lovan, so then he becomes tor. Masha'in kain, if he comes along with hafach kuli lovan, it wasn't miteich hesger, it wasn't miteich hechlet, it was in the matzav that he was tor, and then he became hafach kuli lovan, so then he has a din of a regular baharis. That din has a din of a regular baharis, and memela its causes should be hesger, and then if there's simoni tumah, so then he becomes a tamim muchlat, as we'll learn b'hamshach. Peirik shvi. Mi shahoye be baharis, v'huchlat be'echad misimoni tumah. He had a baharis, and then he had one of the simoni tumah, the three simoni tumah, either sar lovan, or michyo, or pishoyim. Bein betchila, bein acher hesger. That's what. In other words, either he had right away the simoni tumah, which would be the simoni tumah of sar lovan and michyo, a acher hesger, which could be any of the three simoni tumah, including pishoyim. Or another situation is shushu husgar. He was just husgar. He didn't have any simoni tumah. So we have two cases. Either he's a person that's huchlat, or he's a person that's huchlat. And now, v'achar kach porcha Tzara'as bikuli. Now Tzara'as came in all of his body. V'nepach lovan. He's completely white. Ben shnepach mitech hezger, ben mitech hechlet, which l'chur, what the Rambam said till now. So the din is hareza tor. So he's tor. That's the special din. That if he was in a matzev of huchlat, or he was in a matzev of husgar, and then he became kuli lovan, so then he's tor. Avalim husgar v'leineled le'sumen tumah v'niftar. Person was originally husgar, and then there was leineled le. You know, he had the 2 weeks of hesger and leineled le'sumen tumah, and as a result of that, he was niftar. So therefore, he still was in a shtickle matzev of being able to have pisoin, because he's not like nothing. But nevertheless, but lepel he's in a massive uptur, he's not tummy. Porcha Tzara'as bekulei. So the din is hareza tummy muchlet, then he becomes a tummy muchlet. Then he has a din of pisoin. Then he has a din of regular pisoin. There's no heter of hafach kuli lovan and fakert. This hafach kuli lovan is seen as pisoin. Memela, that's in itself a simon tumas. So let's go over it again. When a person is a matzav of husgar, or a person is a matzav of huchlat, and then he was hafach kuli lovan, so the din is his tor. If it is a matzav of, let's say, he was husgar originally, and then he waited the 2 weeks of hesger, and then he was niftar, and now he was hafach kuli lovan, so now the hafach kuli lovan doesn't causes tumah. What's the tumah? The tumah is the tumah's pisoin, and it doesn't cause any tar. Halacha beis. Haba b'tchila, a person comes originally. So over here, in halacha aleph we had, he was first behesger, and then he was niftar, and then there was kuli. Then there was kuli lovan. So memela he's tummy mitzadim pisoin. Now haba b'tchila, v'hu kuli hafech lovan. He comes l'chatchila, and he presents himself to the kohen, and he's completely white. Zazoy. If on his body there's also a michya, or shtei sa'aris levanis, or he has 2 sa'aris levanis which are simoni tumah machlitei. So that's a regular din. In other words, we look at this, the Rambam will say b'hamshach, we look at this large nega as if it's a regular nega. So a michya is a simon tumah, and shtei sa'aris levanis is a simon tumah. It's machlitei. However, in shom simon tumah, he doesn't have a michya, and he doesn't have simoni and sa'aris levanis. Is masgirin is a shvur rishon. He goes into Hezker for a week. Now neled leseir loven and michya machlitei le neled beklum is masgirin shvur sheni like a regular denega le neled lesimon tumah. After the shvur sheni again is le neled lesimon tumah is a rezator shadin baharazu agdela kedin aktana. They both have the same din. So that's the nekudas adin. Person comes along with half a kuli loven. He's completely white. His baharis is over his entire body. So he has a din as if he would have a baharis kigris. And memela, if there's a michya, so memela it's a simon tumah. If there was seir loven, it's also simon tumah. He has nachachas pisoin because he's kuli loven. So memela, the third simon of pisoin is nachachas. Now, so it has a dish. Didn't say baharis agdel is kedin aktan. Now, chichlitei b'seir loven shnei libay. A person is kule loven, and now he has seir loven. That seir loven caused there should be a chlite. And then the hishchiru shteyim yachas me'am. And then that seir loven, which originally was a reason for tuma, now they became black. Or one of them became black, or ktziru shteyim, or they became too short. The shear was that we had the shear of the shtei sidus, that it has to be enough to be cut with a misparayim, and now ktziru shteyim yachas me'am. Or nismach shchil shteyim elachas me'am. There doesn't Peirik Beis. We learned all the halachas of the seir loven, when the seir loven is not a siman tumah. If you have the shchin right next to the seir loven, in other words, you have a beheres, and right next to in the beheres there's a seir loven. But in the beheres there was like developed a shchin, and that shchin is right next to the seir loven. This machashchin l'shteim, or la'achas mem, or to one of the cyrus lavanas, or hikev hashchin l'shteim, or yachas mem, or the shchin encircled these cyrus, and memela the cyrus are no longer inside the beheres because it's encircled by the shchin. Yachas mem, or shechil kan hashchin, u'michis hashchin va'michvia, u'michis ha'michva va'beg. There's all these dinim that we learned earlier, b'negeya, that if you have a regular beheres, and then you have seir loven as a siman tumah. So the Rambam discussed that the seir loven, in order to be a siman tumah, it has to be b'teicha beheres. It has to be b'teicha beheres. Masha'inkin, if it's next to the michis ha'michva, michis ha'shchin, or it's surrounded by the shchin or the michva, all these cases were cases that was tor. So the same thing if a person has kule seir, he comes kule loven, and then he has siman tumah of the seir loven, and then he developed this michis hamichva or michis hashchin, all these things next to the seir loven. So the seir loven is no longer betecha beheres. So the din is arizator. Now noilud loy seir loven acher. Now he has other seir loven, a michya, or now he has a michya. Is arizator? Why? The nekudas advarim mipnei sheba kulei loven betchila. Since he was ba kulei loven betchila, so there was no special din of kulei loven. He had the regular din of a beheres. So just like every beheres, a beheres that has seir loven is siman tumah. If that seir loven goes away, and there's no longer a din of seir loven because it's next to a michya, so it's not a siman tumah. If there becomes new seir loven or becomes a michya, it's again a siman tumah. There's no special dinim over here. It's the regular din of beheres. Al derech zeh, this person that was hafach kulei loven also has a regular din of beheres. Now, echad sheparcha Tzara'as bekulei kachas. Now, this din of parcha bekulei would be whether it was parcha Tzara'as kulei kachas. It started l'chatchila. It developed on the entire body. The echad shepasses so parcha ma'at ma'at at shehil ben kulei. Or he saw it spreading. He saw a little bit part of his body with Tzara'as, and it extended and extended until his entire body was covered with Tzara'as. So it's the same din. The Kudas din is the same din he started with. If he started off after he was Hezger or Hechlet, and now he's Kulei Loven, even though the Kulei Loven happened all at one time, or it happened slowly, it started spreading, it started. And however, if it was after Aptur, it's Tamei, because Lepeil, this is a regular din of a nega, and that nega is fakert, is a pisoyin. This is a pisoyin. It's not a simantar. It's a simantuma. The im betchila, and if he comes originally, so mele it's not called a pisoyin. A person comes originally with kuli loven, is yasger. He's remasger. So this again the same din. The nekudas hadin is that if a person was tamei or he was betech hasger, and then all of a sudden he has hafach kuli loven, so that's a simantuma. If a person comes after the ptur, after the ptur he had a beharis, and now he was niftar. The reason why he was niftar is because there wasn't developed not a sar loven and not a michya and not a pisoin, and he was niftar. And now all of a sudden he's kuli loven, so that kuli loven becomes a pisoin, and therefore it's a simon of tumah. If l'mashal, that's another situation. Another situation would be where a person comes m'lechatchila with a beharis, and it's hafa kuli loven, and now he develops simoni tumah. So if he develops simoni tumah, so then they're tummy. If those simoni tumah go away, and then he develops other simoni tumah, so they're also tummy. Notice it's all the same dinim as if it was a regular hezker. This large beharis, which is over his entire body, which he comes originally with, so if he develops simoni tumah, so he's tummy. If it doesn't develop simoni tumah, So then the poiter they say, and if he develops simoni tumah, and those simoni tumah go away, and then again he develops more again simoni tumah, so those simoni tumah are simoni tumah. That's this thing. Then he says echad shoyu kuli mare echad, oy shoyu kuli lovan ba'arba mare shebelevin or ba'arba shel pasach. In other words, it wasn't one shade of white. There were different shades of white, and maybe besides the shades of white, there was also shades of white mixed with red. Hakel mitzdarfen, the or mitzdarfen bein letare, whether or not to make him hafa kuli lovan, which is a siba letara, or bein letama, or hafa kuli lovan, which is siba letuma. For example, after the ptur, or a siba for hezger k'mishabir. That's this din. So Kitzur is very clear that if you have it after hezger and tuma, so it's a siman tuma. If you have it stamazay, it has a din of a regular nega, as a din of a regular nega. Halacha gibul. Hoisaboy baheres kigris. A person had a baheres kigris. Ubo michya ka'adasha, and he has a michya in this baheres. Now v'huchlad b'michya. Now it was huchlad because there was a michya. And now uparcha tzara'as b'kulei. And now the tzara'as. So again, so you have a person that's tummy, is tummy huchlad, and the huchlad was through a michya. And v'achar kach holach hamichya uparcha tzara'as b'kulei. First the tzara'as spread over his entire body. And v'achar kach holach hamichya, and the michya also went, because if the michya doesn't go, so the tzara'as didn't really spread over his entire body. In order for the tzara'as to spread over the entire body, it can't only be the body which is outside the tzara'as, it also has to be the michya which is inside the tzara'as. First the michya went, v'achar kach parach b'kulei. So either way, whether first the michya went, and then the michya went, and then the outside the tzara'as became white, or the other way. But over here, when the michya goes first, you have to make sure that it's talking about not in a case where the kohen said he's potter. Whereas if the kohen would see that the michya went and it would declare him to be tor, and then it would be pashta tzara'as b'kulei, he would be takatome, or at least he would have a hezger. Whereas when we're saying oisha holcha michya tchila v'achar kach parach b'kulei, it means to say holcha michya tchila, and lepel the kohen didn't say anything about achar kach parach b'kulei. So the din is hariza tor. Va'afilu neilad le'seir loven. So here's coming to a new din. In other words, we said before that parach b'kulei, that if the loven was b'kulei, the parach tzara'as b'kulei is a simantara. So now we're saying that it's a simantara even if neilad le'seir loven. In other words, even if there was a seir loven that was neilad in this tzara'as, which was parach b'kulei, nevertheless, since this tzara'as that was parach b'kulei is a simantara, so a tzara'as is not going to make it a tummy. Just like Lamoshel, if a person was willing behemshach, just like if a person, for example, had a nega, and that nega had a seir loven, so he became tummy, it was tummy vade, and then this tzara'as was parcha b'kulei, so again now this tzara'as is a simantara, even though lepel he still has that seir loven, which was a simantuma. Yeah, it's taka the tzara'as, the seir loven was a simantuma, but now the fact that it was parcha b'kulei, the tzara'as was parcha b'kulei, overrides the tumah of the seir loven. And al derazeh, if a person had a michya, and that michya he had a tzara'as, and in that tzara'as he had a michya, and therefore he was huchla to be tummy, and really he had a din tummy, and now this tzara'as was parach b'kulei, and the michya went away, and the entire body became a beheres. And now after that he develops a seir loven. So since this loven is a reason of tara, that's not a reason of tumah. Normally when you have a beheres, so that beheres is a reason of hezger. Now this beheres, which has a seir lovan, so that's a reason for echlet. Masha'inkan over here, fakir, this seir lovan, this beheres was a reason for tara. That it was a reason for tara. So the seir lovan, which is in a beheres, is not a reason for tumah. Masha'inkan a michya, which goes into this in this hafach kuli lovan. So first of all, it changes, it becomes uis hafach kuli loven. And there's a special din that if the michya comes into hafach kuli loven, so then you stomach. I mean, you could also taina that since this baharis is not a simon for tumas, so maybe there's no din michya. So the din is not like that. The din is that a michya which is in hafach kuli loven is a simon for tumah. That's what the Rambam is going to say here. Let's start the whole Rambam again, the whole halacha again. Hoysem be baharis kigris. He had started off with a baharis kigris. Uba, and in this baharis kigris was a michya kadash. And the huchlat b'michya, he became tummy muchlat through the michya. And then, so he's tummy. Now, uparcha tzara'as b'kulei. And v'achar kach holcha michya, it was paras The Tzara'as was Parcha Bekule, and then it was Holcha Michya. That's one option. Holcha Michya Tchila V'Acharka Parcha Bekule. And as we said, that it's talking about that the Kohen didn't declare him Torah. Because if the Kohen would have declared him Torah, so the Parcha had Tumah Bekule, the Tzara'as Bekule would have been a Simon Tumah. So over here was Holcha Michya Tchila. He was Tomei, Holcha Michya Tchila, and Lepel V'Acharka Parcha Bekule. So the din is Ariza Torah. Vafilu Neilad Leseir Love, and even there's going to be now a Neilad Leseir Love, which is normally a Simon Tumah, but Lepel, since he has Parchat Tzara'as Bekule, so therefore he's Torah. However, Neilad Michya, if now, after he had originally a Michya, and the Michya went away and it was Parchat Tzara'as Bekule, and now it was Neilad by a new Michya, is Tomei. Shenemar Ubiyem, he rose by Basar Chai Yitmo. So if it was raised by Basar Chai in this Parchat Tzara'as Bekule, so then he becomes Tomei. V'hu sheitiya kadash murubas. What's types basar chai? It means it's kadash murubas. Oh yes, sir. That's the first din. Now that din is talking about if he started off with he had a michya. Now hoysabei baharis. If he had a baharis baser love, he had a baharis and then he was huchlat with seir love. Huchlat with seir love. V'charka parcha bekulei. Is aval pisha seir love became in the story. Even though the original Seir Lovin still remained, but that's not a stira to the Tara of Parcha Bekuli. By the Michya would have been a stira because he wouldn't have been Parcha Bekuli. But by the Seir Lovin it's not a stira. Shnamar b'yem hiroiz bei basar chayitma. So we learn that the Michya mistabi zesh napachuli lovin acher hechlet or acher hezger. The person that became Tor acher hezger or acher hechlet through this hapach kuli lovin becomes tummy only with Michya. Masha'enken, if he doesn't become tummy with Seir Lovin. Hechlite bipisoyen. If let's say he became Tomei because there was pisoyen, v'achar kach pasaso parka bekulei is also Torah. And v'nira be michya Tomei, because that's again the din. The din is michya. No, nachmal. The nekuda is that when a person was nishapach kulei Lovin, so and mitech hezger and mitech hechlet, he's Tomei. Now, if at this point in time it redevelops a michya, so then he is tummy again. He became Torah because it was the Sapa Kul 11, but if he redevelops a michya, so he's tummy. Masha'inkin, if he redevelops either remained Saris Levanis, or it even grew Saris Levanis, nevertheless, that's not a Simon Tumah, and he remains Torah. Now, halacha dalet. Now, we learned before that there's a din of the Baharis. One of the Simoni Tumah is a Michya, and that Michya can be B'Rashay Yivarim. That Michya can be B'Rashay Yivarim because it's not Nira Kacha. So if a person sees a regular Baharis, and that Baharis has a Michya, and that Michya is B'Rashay Yivarim on top of the finger, that's not a Simon Tumah. Now, over here, we're learning another din, that a Michya, when he was Nepach Kuli Lavan, becomes a Simon Tumah. That's what we're learning over here. So here the Rambam is saying, Halacha Daled, Af Rashi Yivarim, She'ena Mitam Mishamichya, Shebetecha Beheres. So those Rashi Yivarim, there would be a Michi Betech Beheres, that wouldn't be a Simon Tumah. But nevertheless, Ma'ak Mitamin, Ma'akvin is a Nepach Kulilov. That's the first din. That the fact that he has to be Nepach Kulilovam is if he doesn't, if he has a Michya on that Rashi Yivarim, so the Pashtus Advarim is, there's a Tumah Mishum Michya. And that Tum Mishum Michya can't happen if it's Barasha Ivar, because it's Einer Nira Kachat. But on the other hand, over here, it's a Tara Mitzad Nepakul 11. He has to become, in order for him to become Tahir, it has to be Nepakul 11. Now, if the Rasha Ivarim has a Michya, so it's not Nepakul 11. So Memele, he still remains Tomei. He's not becoming Tomei because of this Michya. Pshat is he remains Tomei because of this Mikveh. That's the Michya. That's the Pashas Adin. Nachamo. After Rashi Yivarim she'ena metam mishum Michya shebetei chaberes, tamun ma'akvin is an epach kuli lovin ketzad muchlot oy muzgar shehilben kuli b'tzaras or bechutz mikadash basar chai, unless except for a kadash basar chai which didn't become kuli lovin, didn't become lovin. Unafilu if that kadash basar chai is b'reishetz boy a b'reish chotmei ukiyetz is harehu b'tumas. So that's the chura pashta din, because lepel he wasn't napach kuli. So you don't need really the michya to be matami. The michya is preventing from having the tara of napach kuli. Now v'chein. Now here we're saying a weiter chiddush. V'chein zeh shenapach kuli. This person originally became Tor because he was Nepach Kuli Lovan and Vitor. And now in Chozabei Kadasha Basachai, so now Kadasha Basachai comes back. Afilu Bereish Echad Meivarim is also Areza Muchlat. Because the Pasha Advarim means the saying that he became Nepach Kuli Lovan, so therefore he's overriding the Din Tum of before. But now, since Lepel, he redeveloped a Michya B'Rasha Ivarim, so that's like taking away the heter of Nepach Kuli Lovan. Since it's taking away the heter of Nepach Kuli Lovan, so Mameli he becomes Tumah again. In other words, it's not a Tumah. It's not the regular Tumah of Michya. It's a Tumah again. The Tumah is that he's taking away the heter of Nepach Kuli Lovan. L'chura, that's the pshat. V'chein zeh sheNepach Kuli Lovan v'tor, imchoze b'kadasha basar chai, afilu b'reish echad meivarim, is hareza muchlet. He's considered a muchlet. Now Nepach Kuli l'marat Tzara'as, Kuli chutz mikadasha, afilu b'reish echad meivarim. But over there it was shenepach l'boyak. He became a boyak. No, it's not. There's no tzar. No, if there's a michya, so it's mamish basar chai. If there's tzara'as, so that would be a tzara'as would be a simitara. If it was nepach kula love. If there would be a michya, even a michya of kadasha part of the body, or even b'rasha ivarim, so that he doesn't have that simitara. Now the question is, what about if there'll be a boyak? A boyak is not a michya. It's not, but on the other end, it's not nepach kula loven. So on the other end, I'm saying this. That's what he's saying. Nepach kula l'marat Tzara'as chutz mikadash afilu b'reish echad meivarim shnepach l'boyak is hareza tomei muchlet. He still remains a tomei. In other words, it's a tomei of pisoyin. Shenema v'hinei kisa Tzara'as le'aboyak. In order for it to be considered a din of nepach kula loven, it has to be kulei Tzara'as and not boyak. Afilu hoyse miktzas ha'adasha basar chai u'miktzas boyak. So even part of it was a boyak, and the other part of it was basar chai. So the boyak is not mitzdaref. Is hareza simentuma. What's actually simentuma? In other words, if the simentuma is the pisoyin. In other words, when it's not nepach kuli lovan, it's pum fakert. So it's a simentuma. The nepach kuli lovan is a simentara, and not nepach kuli lovan is a simentuma. Now nepach kuli l'marat Tzara'as v'tor. The person first was nepach kuli l'marat Tzara'as and became tor. V'achar kach choze bei basar, which is kimare habeyak. So here is a Tor. So even though the pale, if it would be Chazer Bey Kimare Michya, so then he would be Tomei. He would be Tomei. So here the Bayek is not a Michya. It's not really Basar Chai, and therefore he remains Tor. So even though L'churi is no longer an Nepach Kuli Lovan, I'm saying what we said before. It's not like, if the Vart is he's taking away the Nepach Kuli Lovan, so L'churi we said before a Bayek prevents him from being Nepach Kuli Lovan. Whereas if you have a little bit of Bayek somewhere, so then he's not nepach kuli loven. So l'chura now that he was a nepach kuli loven, and now l'chura part of it became a boyak. So if that's the word, you're taking away the nepach kuli loven. So l'chura now he's now partially a boyak. So you have to understand that it's not like that. So on one hand we're saying if there was a boyak left over, so that he's not a nepach kuli loven. But on the other hand, in order for him to be tamei, it's not b'yem hiraz bei boyak. It has to be b'yem raz by basar chai. So the basar chai is a sibul tumah, and this basar chai, which is a sibul tumah, could even be b'rasha ivarim. I'm saying not like we said. Like l'churi, there's a din that a michya is metame. That's a din. Michya is metame. Now the din of michya is metame is a sibul tumah, can be b'rasha ivarim. Now we were saying that l'churi einochinami it can't be b'rasha ivarim, but on the other hand, it could prevent the din of nepach kuli loven. That's pashut. That's l'chura pashut. Al derech zeh, if it was let's say nepach kuli loven with the rasha ivarim, and now it became now basar chai. So now we're saying it became uis nepach kuli loven. But b'negei boyak we're saying that if it was originally boyak b'rasha ivarim, so it's not nepach kuli loven, and therefore he's taka not tor. But on the other hand, in order to become tor, to take away the Tara, once it was Nepach Kuli Loven, and now it became Bayek, so it remains Torah. I'm just saying it's not really consistent with what we said before. You have to be Masber that a Bayek, that the new Basar Chai, even Barasha Yivarim, when it comes after there was this Tara of Nepach Kuli Loven, can be Matami, even Barasha Yivarim, could be Matami, even Barasha Yivarim, And a bayek is not matami. That's what we're saying. V'charka chazer bei basachai k'mer abayek arizator. Ad sheyirabei nochmol. Nepach kula l'mar Tzara'as and mitor. V'charka chazer bei basar k'mar abayek arizator. Ad sheyirabei ka'adasha basar chai. Now, the second time, in order for it to come back, it has to be ka'adasha basar chai. Is again a bayak. If there was a bayak, so it's not considered nepach kula loven. If it's a bayak, it's not considered nepach kula loven. If it redeveloped basar chai after it was nepach kula loven, so that's a siman tumah. But if it redeveloped a bayak, so then it's not considered a siman tumah. That's not considered a tumah. So even though it's already l'chura not nepach kula loven, but it's not a siman tumah. Shnamar ubiyem hirois bei basar chai le bayak. Na chazer bei ka'adasha. Miktsase basar chai, miktsase bayak is again ain't a siman tumah. Varei b'tarasi. In order for him to become tamei after he was nepach kula loven and it became tor, it has to be that there should be basar chai. It can't be anything of bayak. Halacha hey, kol tamei sheparcha Tzara'as b'kulei tor. So someone that was originally tamei and was parcha Tzara'as b'kulei became tor. Nizgala mimenu ka'adasha basar chai. If part of the tumah, the nepach kula loven was nisapich, and now there's a kadasha of basar chai, is nitma, so he becomes back tummy. As he said, b'yemi roz basar chai nitma. Now chaziv and niskasa b'tzaras, if that area became again niskasa b'tzaras, right now he's tummy. So now that area became niskasa b'tzaras, so that's the din of nepach kula loven. So again he started chaziv and nisgalsa. If it was revealed, and now again it's no longer tzaras, now there's basar chai, is nitma afilu me'apam. Now his chil basar chai is galus. Now you started noticing that it started becoming basar chai. Varei u'meisa v'helach v'atzaras miyisma'etas. But nevertheless, Arei b'tumasa. He knows he was a mitzayir and he was huchlat. He was huchlat b'tumah. In other words, once it was nira be basar chai, so it's a reason for tumah. So even though we see that the basar chai is advancing more and more, but lepel at this point in time, once it was nizgal, it became basar chai, so he became tummy. Is Arei b'tumasa? Asher tismat habaharis mikigris. And it sounds like that even while in the middle of that process, the kohen could announce him tummy. Whereas the din is that when he had nepach kula loven, he was tor. Then when he was partially already, it was there was he rose by basar chai. He's tummy. He's tiny. This basar chai seems to be expanding. Let's wait before he becomes tummy again. Say no. Then right now he's tummy. Eventually he'll become tor. If it'll be that the entire nega will go away, so then it'll be tor. Halacha vov kol haroi litami b'nega beheres is ma'akev ha'hefech kuli loven. V'chol she'eni roi litami b'nega beheres eni ma'akev. This we learned really till now, that the din of nepach kuli loven is only on those parts of the body which are roi litami beheres. Even though they have different dinim, for example, we learned there's the din of the reish and there's the din of the michvah, Tzara'as HaMichvah, Michyas HaMichvah, Tzara'as HaShchin, which have different dinim, but nevertheless, since all of them are shaykhs to become tamei through a baharis, so mela they are nepach kula loven means including them. Mashiach in those parts of the body which are not shaykhs to have a shaykhs to a baharis, that a baharis should be matame them. So who adin, they're not ma'akev legabe nepach kula loven. Nachamol kol haroi l'tame b'nega baharis. Ma'akev ha'efach kuli loven. Aber v'chol she'ener roi l'tam b'nega beheres is ener ma'akev ketzad parcha b'kulei avalei b'reisha b'zoken, which talking about reisha b'zoken, which has hair, or u'b'shchin u'b'michva ha'merdim. So since we're talking about shchin u'michva ha'merdim, which didn't yet develop any type of healing, so it's not shaykhs to have over there a din of beheres. Oi shenichar nishar pachas mikadasha basachai Samuch l'shchin or l'michva hamerdim or l'reishol l'zokan. I'm not really sure if it's a pakas mikadash basar chai, it's not ma'akiv. What's in the gay only if it's samuch l'shchin or l'michva hamerdim or l'reishol l'zokan. I'm not really sure. So the din is hareza tor. So hareza tor. Now chazer hareish v'hazokim v'nichruchu. Because you have the reish and the zokim that it wasn't parach in the reish and the zokim. That was when the Reish and the Zokim weren't shaykhs to have tumas baharis, because lepeil it had hair. Now this Reish and the Zokim now no longer have hair; they became bald. v'chenim choyu ashchin v'mikvah. This shchin and the mikvah, which originally wasn't nepach liyas loven, and it wasn't ma'akiv nepach liyas kula loven, because they were shchin and mikvah amerdim, and now choyu ashchin v'mikvah v'helu tzara'as. Now they have healing, started the healing process, and now they could develop a baharis, a simatuma. So now is hareza tummy, so he has a din of a tummy. So notice, even though originally he was lechatchila a tor mitzad nepach kula loven, but that nepach kula loven tara is pending. In other words, it's not gomer. It's not gomer, and because there's now, since he's not nepach kula loven anymore, because there's more parts of his body which could become now tummy b'tumas tzara'as. So it kilo is ma'akiv. Now he's no longer nepach kula loven. Sharei ruinly baharis. So we see that there's a musik that even though he's nepach kula loven and became tor, but nevertheless he's not completely tor. He's only completely tor. At this point in time he's tor. But when if all of a sudden there's going to be a matzav where he's not nepach kula loven, so then again he's not going to be tor. It's like a tara which a whole time needs the matzav of nepach kula loven in order to be tor. So the chura, that's what we were saying before, that if he has michias basar chai, so then he's no longer bepchinas that nepach kula loven, because he has michias basar chai. So you don't need the michias basar chai to be matami. The chura, all you need is that he's no longer nepach kula loven. But nevertheless, we said when he get bayek that there was a difference. If there was a bayek, so then he wouldn't be considered nepach kula loven. Mashenkin, if later on there's a bayek, he's still considered nepach kula loven. That was the difference. Now, a person had two negoim. Achas yesh ba siman tuma. One has a siman tuma, but achas tehera, and the other one is tehera. It doesn't have a siman tuma. Now, uparcha ha tehera l'tmeya. The tehera extended, became connected to the tmeya. V'achar kach parcha bekula is arizator. So the question is, l'chura, the pastus is you have a nega which is tamei, and that nega which was tamei was perech bekuli. Over here, l'chura, the nega that was tor was perech bekuli. The nega that was tor started extending itself into the tamei, and then it was perech bekuli. So nevertheless, we say no, that since the tor joined the tamei, now the tamei together with the tor were parcha bekuli, so therefore it's considered that parcha bekuli, and that's a simon of tara. Mipnei shahaya muchlit betuma, since he was muchlit betuma, and nepach kula loven is a simon tara when he was muchlit betuma. Afal pi shatera he shaparcha. Even though the Torah was the one that was parcha, but lepel, since he was muchlit betuma, and lepel now he was parcha bekula, so we could look at it and say the Torah extended into the tmeya, and memela now it's a hapach kula loven. V'lei eid, this is hard, not so clear what's the v'lei eid. V'lei is a chiddush, not a chiddush. Lafilo haya achaz b'svasa il yeina v'achaz b'svasa tachteina. He had two negoim, one on his upper lip, one on his lower lip. Ebishtei etzbe'esav, where he had on two fingers. Ebishtei risi'enav, or on two of his eyelids. Ukshein edbakum zelazeh, and when they connect them to each other, nirin shtei baharis kebaharis achaz. Then they look like one. Now, when you say two eyelids, obviously it can't mean mamish two eyelids. It means the eyelid which is on top of the eye and right under the eye, which is also when the eyelid goes down, so it connects to the part of the next to the eye, which is under the eye, rather than the other eye. So the din is also hail parcha bekuli tor. It's like there'll be a svara that since they're so separate, so therefore you can't say that the Torah and the tummy are joining, and now the tummy is extending bekuli. You're saying no, the Torah was extended bekuli. So we say no. So since the Torah and the tummy really could connect, they could connect. In other words, when you put the two fingers together, or you put the two lips together, they could connect. So therefore we say that it's also considered that the tummy was parach bekuli. It seems to be like you could find that it's really no din that the tummy was parach bekuli. The din is that he was tummy, and lepel at this point in time, the tumah was the tzara'as was parcha bekula, regardless of where the tzara'as come from. I mean, if a person had tzara'as, he was a tummy muchlet, and then all of a sudden it didn't happen that this started spreading. All of a sudden, he noticed that there was a tzara'as in a different place, and that tzara'as in a different place started spreading, and eventually it spread over the entire body. The pastor that's also considered. It doesn't have to be. Now there's tzara'as b'koli. So you have to look at it as the Tzara'as of Tumah, which was originally Tumah, was Tzara'as Bekulei, and Memela that spread, and that was a Siba for Tara. So therefore we're saying that we want to make it that the Tzara'as which was Tumah and Tzara'as which was Tor are considered one. Maybe it needs right explanation. What's the Chiddush over here? The Nekudas Hadin is clear that if a person had a Tzara'as which was Matami, and he has a Nega which was Tor, and then it was Pashta Bekula, so the din is his Tor. Halacha Zayin. Yesh Mara Nigel Kain, Veniskar. In other words, it comes out better for him because Shehigdim Laharese V'lei Nesacher. V'yesh Mara Umafsid, something's fakert, the fact that he showed the Kain, and then something else happened, so that comes out worse for him. Kesed. Mi Shahaya Muchlet, the person that was Muchlet, V'hol Chulei Simoni Tumah, he was Muchlet, he had a din of Tumah, and now he didn't have the Simoni Tumah anymore. And Lepeil V'lehispek Laharese L'Kain, he didn't have a chance Laharese L'Kain, and the Kain should tell him that he's Torah, Ache Parcha Bekuli, and at this point in time it's Parcha Bekuli. So the din is Torah, because he's considered that he became Parcha Bekuli Mitech Hechlet. Agam Be'emes, the Simonim of Hechlet weren't there anymore. Like we learned before, when he had a Nega, in that Nega there was a Michya, and then the Michya went away, and then it was Pasa Bekula. Then it was Pasa Bekula. So really when the Michya went away, he didn't have any Simoni Tumah, but since the Kain didn't say that he's Torah, so therefore he considered Tomei, and then it was Ki'ilu Pasa Mitech Hechlet, and therefore he's Torah. Ve'ilu Kodem V'hera L'Kain U'Patre Kain M'Shiyafach. If Lepel at that point in time, when Holchulam Simoni Tumah, he would have gone to the Kain, and the Kain would have said Taka he's Torah, and then V'nepach Achar Aptur, and then after the Ptur, he would have developed this, that the Pashta, the Nepach Kulil Lovan, the Nepach Achar Aptur, Hoya Muchlet, K'mesha B'yarnu. He would have become Muchlet, because then Fakir, then he would have been Pisoyin, it would have been Pisoyin. Hoysebei Baharis, he had originally a Baharis Vein Baklum, V'lihispek La'areisa L'Kain HaSheporcha B'kulei, so the din is Ariza Thomas over here, not going to the Kain was not for his advantage, and therefore it's Sarach Hezger. However, if he would have gone right away, and his Gire Kain Mishihafach, and then the Kain would have put him into Hezger before it was Nepach Kululovin, and the Nepach Mitech Hezger is then Hayator K'mishim B'yanu. So sometimes going to the Kain earlier is advantageous for him, and sometimes it comes out for his detriment.